me. It concerns me.
Oh, we're here.
Hello. Welcome all. Then you do it.
Ladies first.
Generational change. It's Monday night. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we're finally not matching or...
We got it.
Yes.
We got it.
We are. So we hope for those of you who are coming over from Jordan's channel that you enjoyed our little bit about Senator Bernie Sanders. But, the big topic of conversation, obviously, is the whole system just seems to be collapsing right now. And while I do think that you're going to need to have, somebody coming in from a primary situation in the Democratic Party, I do think there is going to be some type of an opportunity for an independent or at least somebody to run outside the two-party duopoly that's going to cause a stir.
I hope so. I would like to say that I've been wanting him to run for president since long before I knew who Bernie was. You know what I mean? Like ever since like the governor days.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I've always liked him. So yeah. And he is someone that I find to be like a true patriot. And I respect that. So that matters to me.
Yeah. And again, I really thought that, Jesse was going to have an opportunity to run in 2020. Again, we don't really know. Everyone's going to have a different opinion about what did or did not happen with, the Green Party and what they did and did not do. I believe that they didn't think that Jesse was pure enough for the party.
But honestly, before I got on Bernie's campaign, I remember like saying, oh, I hope if Jesse Ventura runs, I want to work on his campaign. Like this is,
Well, and this is really the difference, between somebody like Bernie and somebody like Jesse, and maybe, some of the other people we've talked about who have run for president. But the thing about Jesse Ventura that makes him very interesting is the fact that he is not just somebody who would run outside the two-party system. He has done it, and he's won.
But you know what? When we talk about how Bernie wouldn't go the distance in terms of calling out Joe and really, Bernie really didn't want to do that. Jesse would call him out on the stage, in a debate, anytime, anywhere. And he would. And that's a big difference. Bernie has policy and Bernie is a reformer, but he's not a revolutionary. Jesse's a revolutionary.
He's definitely something special. And we've always felt that way. I always felt that he was, just somebody who really is a cut above. He's just really different. The way he has zero F's to give, that's always been his disposition. He sees both sides as equally terrible. He thinks that there's good things about conservatism, good things about liberalism. But in terms of the infrastructure, the way things are set up in this country, it's really bad.
He's anti-party.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's just pro-America. In the truest sense.
And in reality, the parties, along with their corporate friends, that's what's killing us. The parties are basically their vessel to kill us because that's how they've taken over the government.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they are definitely part of the empire. They are. And he sees outside of that box. And I love that.
I think Mac is correct. I do think that it is very possible. And that is one thing that is very possible. As far as I can tell, if Jesse's going to do this, I'm not even sure he's necessarily going to do it within one of the parties. I could honestly see him doing it as an MPA.
Right now, he's really coming on to promote his new Substack.
Well, yes, but of course, everybody wants to talk about.
Everybody wants to talk about what he's going to run.
The problem is that there's just so few leaders out there,
and he's so good.
He is.
It's like
You also get the sense that if he did it, he doesn't really want to. He feels like he has to.
Yeah. This is somebody who served one term as governor, had very high popularity, did a really good job, and then chose not to run for a second term. Very George Washington-esque.
The thing I also love about him is that he was a Navy frogman. I mean, talk about a badass. I mean, he may not. I mean, he's basically
he's
like
extremely versatile. Yes, I like a president that's been in Predator.
I wouldn't mind a president who knows how to actually ride a motorcycle.
Well, there's just a lot of things. To me, having served is an important factor. If you're going to be leading the world's largest military, to me, I like somebody who has served. That's just, personal preference. But he's just badass. Just badass. I love that.
Well, Jesse should be here. That
Yes.
is the optimal
Yeah.
point. So
And I
let's see.
think is his son's going to join.
Okay.
Ty.
All right. So hang on one second. This always happens. Link.
I tell you repeatedly to stop sending people Google Calendar days.
But I don't think I
You're
did.
only supposed to send that to me. You're not supposed. You didn't send it to me, so maybe that's where you sent it.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to have to get this link.
You are so challenged. Go to our StreamYard where we are and get a copy. You can send from there probably.
No, but I already sent it this afternoon. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Where is the sent messages?
You are so challenged. Anyway.
I'm not that challenged.
You're a little challenged. So apparently there's been new January 6th footage. And I'm really wanting to talk with Jesse. There's a few things in my mind that I really want to touch on with him, besides me just sort of fangirling. Like, I definitely think we should talk about January 6th and who these patriots think they are. You know what I mean? Like this whole concept of that they're like these pro-American people that were trying to insurrect. And then I wanted to talk with him about the gun reform issue lately, because he's one of those people that probably really does know about firearms and probably also has a lot of friends that are pro-gun. And it's always very, and he's someone who would probably have good policy suggestions. So I could talk with him about probably a million things.
No, and Jesse will be here in a minute. I think it's, again, his ability to really, and again, like you say, be very diverse in terms of his conversing abilities. You can talk about basically any topic.
Oh yeah, and you can talk about who killed JFK.
There's also something to be said.
Any kind of conspiracy theories, which the only reason that they're called conspiracy theories is because they want people to think that they're crazy when in fact they're not. So yeah, there's that.
So we've had obviously some very interesting guests on our podcast before, but this one's very special. This is somebody that Jen and I both admire very much for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which he is extremely entertaining. So we could start there. That's how everybody initially knew him. He's also somebody who really has a grasp of where the American people are really at. That's why when somebody is elected as an independent at the highest level in a state, people realize that, wow, it really is great to have somebody who isn't just playing party politics.
Yeah.
Having somebody who's also served our country means a lot. And having somebody who really gets just how precarious our situation in our country is right now and can not only diagnose it, but hopefully help solve some of those major problems that are facing us today. So without further ado, the one and only Jesse "the Body" Ventura. Welcome to Generation.
Well, thank you. And that's quite an introduction. I hope I don't fail on all of this. You've put a lot of pressure on me here to come up with a solution that I don't know if anyone's got an answer to.
Yeah. I've been a fan for a long time, huge fan. This is definitely, and I've said many times, you could probably find it in our show's history, that you are my biggest get on this show. And so I am so thankful that you came on. And I feel like we could talk about anything. We could talk about anything. So why don't we start with you talking about your new Substack and what you're doing that for, and that way we could sort of find a direction.
Okay, well, me and my son Tyrell have both naturally have left RT America, Russian Television America, because it no longer exists anymore. It with the sanctions that were placed on it and the fact they couldn't use a bank, and they were being pulled off of television everywhere. So subsequently, as of May 3rd, we officially lost our jobs. So I guess I can go down and file for unemployment now, because I did have regular employment status with them where it was all paid for, and my accountant told me I'm entitled to it. I haven't exercised that option yet, but because Substack reared up, many times in life when something bad happens to you, if you hold on for a few moments, it'll turn around, and that something bad can sometimes lead to something that's even better. In fact, it happened, if I can have the liberty of telling you, in my pro wrestling career.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, well, I got struck down with blood clots in the lungs. I was critical for 7 days. The night before I was due to wrestle Hogan for the world title is when it happened. And Subsequently, I did get back into the ring, but never to the extent of what I was. But you'd think my career was over there, but in the reality was, through the adversarial of getting injured like that, missing my shot with Hogan, which of course cost me tremendous amount of money, not being able to do that. It led to Vince McMahon coming up with the idea of putting me on the microphone, because he knew that I could still talk and I still had, the brain was still there, even though the body had failed for that particular moment in time. So I started broadcasting wrestling, and subsequently I got more notoriety and more fame, fortune, and what have you, simply talking about it, which I found very attractive, because then I didn't have to get body slammed anymore. And I didn't have to, get thrown into turnbuckles and take suplexes and other various things that, wreak havoc on your body, especially when you get to an older age. Many of my fellow wrestlers are gone today. They've perished from the planet. And those that are still left a lot of them are hobbling around, with, they don't move around too well anymore. And that's well because of what you did in the ring. And if I can boldly plug, Tito Santana has a fantastic book out called Don't Call Me Chico. And for people that are into wrestling, I highly recommend the read. It's funny, it's hilarious, and it really gives them the behind the scenes of what took place back in the 80s when wrestling made its big catapult onto the national scene. But getting back now through this adversarial thing happening at RT, it's opened the door for Substack. And really, I had freedom with RT, but you're still under the domain of television. Like if I said a swear word, they'd have to bleep it. You still are underneath an umbrella of some sort of rules, regulations, and what have you. But Substack, it's not that way. Substack, the freedom is now there. I can participate both by speaking, writing, videos, guests, any means possible is available. And my son and I have only to answer to ourselves and the viewers, those that so choose to receive it. And so it's an exciting time for me, in the fact too that since I did the show Conspiracy Theory, which I might add was for entertainment purposes, I like to throw that in there because, some of the conspiracies we covered, I obviously didn't give them the great deal of credence, but there's still legit conspiracies out there that we covered. But it's the first chance I've had since Conspiracy Theory to directly work with my son.
And we want to bring him on. He's sitting there in the waiting room, and we want to bring him on. That's why. So, okay, let's bring him in.
Tyrell Ventura, welcome to Generational Change.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure. It's truly a pleasure.
I was trying to find an inroad, and I was like into it, but I saw you waiting there. And so, this Substack is, and I'm very kind of dino in terms of tech stuff. Is this a written or a video?
Well, the great thing about the platform at Substack is that they allow us to do everything from writing articles to putting up videos to doing podcasts, so audio. So it's kind of that we can kind of attack every issue or everything we want to talk about on three different fronts, and it allows the subscribers to be able to get us on all fronts. They can read the articles we put up that me and Jesse work on. They can see the videos that we put up, and they can also listen to the podcast. So it's a really great dynamic platform for being able to reach your audience on multiple different avenues.
And I found out today I have a fan out there who I'm a fan of too. We kind of fell together. I guess you would call us. How would you describe us? We would be unlikely partners or unlikely allies. Go ahead, Ty. Tell them who.
We got a great. We were on Twitter, and we got a great message from Chuck D from Public Enemy. Fame, and as though me and Jesse are divided by generations in terms of our musical likes, my father does have a good soft spot and is a fan of Public Enemy, and so it was fun getting a message from Chuck.
Yeah,
I always love it when
when
paths cross with people. You know, it's when you were talking, Jesse, about one thing leads to the next thing. It's like you end up exactly where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. You know what I mean? Like that's how it goes. And like I wasn't a subscriber, and now I'm gonna have to go on Substack. Just you were the reason I ended up with RT in the first place. Like that was how I got there. I was on Air America for you and Ed Schultz. This was like, when was that? That was like
2016.
No,
15?
it was like late 90s.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
right?
that's Air America. Wasn't that the thing? Wasn't Paul Wellstone involved in that?
Yeah.
Rachel
Yeah.
Maddow was involved.
Well, that was when Rachel Maddow was somewhat normal.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember Air America floating around out there back at that point in time. But
Yeah.
well, good. We're glad to have you on board. And like I said, Substack is I'm excited over it because we can work our own hours. And right now, I'm 70 years old. I'll be 71 next month, and I only want to work in the evening because when you get 71, you're supposed to play golf in the day. And so that Substack allows me now to do that because I can play golf in the daytime then and then do my Substack show at night. And Ty's good enough. He doesn't mind working at night or in the evening. We're not really at night, but the early evening, latter afternoon. And so that's another thing. It gives you the flexibility to be able to work your own hours and to really work out of your house, which I did have a good thing with RT though, because I was fortunate enough I worked out of my home when I did RT. And so and I want to say RT was a savior because I've been pretty much blackballed and banned from mainstream media. And that happened in my court case, the Kyle thing, because 33 media conglomerates came into that trial and in the appeal end when it hit the appeals court and interjected themselves into something that was none of their business. And basically from that point on, I've been blackballed out of the mainstream media of America. You know this.
Would you want to be on them? Would you want to go talk to them?
Certainly. Because they still have the great majority of people listening to them, and yes, I'd like to go on to bring them back honesty. You know, there's still that fight to be fought out there with mainstream media. You know, I don't want to see them disappear, you know, and turn into what they're turning into. They're strictly now basically an entertainment center. You know, that's what they're there for, is entertainment and ratings points. Yeah, but I think they can still be captured. I think they can still be saved. And I'd certainly make myself available to mainstream media, but I won't do it for free. I'm through working for them for free. You know, I used to go on all the time. They'd come CNN, and they'd all come get me. And they'd get me to voice my opinion, the voice of the independent. And I wasn't getting paid for it. And then I find out all these other talking heads are all making money at it. And so when they entered my court case, I went, screw them. I'm not going to talk to mainstream U.S. media anymore unless they're paying me.
That's a very good philosophy to have. We're speaking with Jesse Ventura and Tyrell Ventura. Jesse, one thing that I think you can really speak on as somebody who fought in the ultimate propaganda war, which was the Vietnam War, where we saw the direction that a lot of these media outlets were taking at the outset of the 2016 election and what happened after that, basically propagandizing Americans to believe that anything in RT America is anti-American, don't listen to it, or now we actually have to kick them off the air altogether. Could you talk about just how devastating this type of propaganda works on Americans? Because even those that have seen it, and they've seen it over and over again, they still fall seemingly into the same trap over and over again.
I'm in Groundhog Day.
It's amazing, you know, especially when you get my age and you start, now I have to even categorize it. I'm not seeing things over again for the first time. I'm now seeing them over again for the second and third times.
Right.
You know, where the same formula is being used over and over again. And I've spoke out already. You know, we're all outraged over what's happening in Ukraine. And I cannot condone nothing Vladimir Putin can tell me would justify what he's done. There is nothing that he could tell me he could gain or needs to do to justify what he's done. But I still like to bring up the fact that, excuse me, has everybody forgotten Iraq? I mean, we did the same damn thing in Iraq. We invaded a country, a sovereign nation. We invaded under false pretenses, just like what started the Vietnam War, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, bogus BS, you know, that put us into that war. Then you get the Iraq War, same thing, ties to Al Qaeda, weapons of mass destruction, all of it not true. Iraq had nothing. Allegedly, we were going to war to avenge 9/11, right? Wasn't that what they told us we were doing? Well,
Yeah.
Iraq and Saddam Hussein had virtually nothing to do with 9/11. So why wasn't there the same outrage? There was, they just didn't show it. There was great outrage over when we invaded Iraq, but yet, was tamped down. You couldn't. Well, you know the story about me and MSNBC, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was not allowed on the air because I opposed the invasion of Iraq. Phil Donahue was their highest rated show. He was pulled from the air because he opposed the invasion of Iraq. That's not mainstream media kowtowing to the government position. It's not questioning their position. It's supporting it when they don't allow anyone on the air who says, wait a minute, this is wrong. I don't agree with this. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And fortunately for me on Substack now, I'll be able to do that all I want. But would I go back on mainstream media? Yeah, to try to make till they kick me off again.
How long do you think you would make it? What we would do, like an over-under on that?
Well, I'll tell you what the good thing about it would be. You got to bear this in mind. I wouldn't sign nothing less than another 3-year deal. So after they kick me off after 1 week, I'd get paid big money for 3 years again. You know, because they'd have to handcuff me and silence me, so they'd have to honor the contract, which we both. That's what happened the first time with MSNBC. I was supposed to have Rachel Maddow's slot. That's supposed to be my slot on MSNBC, but I was never given it because of the fact that I opposed the Iraq War. Anyway, talk to Tyrell for a while. I've gone on long enough.
What is the short-term and long-term plans? Because obviously a lot changes when you don't have an outlet, but your voices are so very important. Obviously, members of the chat were mentioning your show, Watching the Hawks. These things are very important, but I just don't think the average American really understands just how propagandized this nation really is. Like, I think that they don't understand that the forms of fascism that have seeped into our daily lives, and all they want to talk about is how, the GOP is fascist. It's like, no, our infrastructure as a nation is fascist. They do not want dissent in any capacity because it goes against the bottom line. And nothing makes more money in this country than the military-industrial
war.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
There is no doubt. Go ahead, Ty. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, without a doubt, and in fact, just to piggyback on that, I would say most of the people working in mainstream media don't even understand the propaganda or the kind of forced consent that's at work. Because, the hiring process is, they're only hiring the people they know will kind of toe the party line. And even then, if they do allow dissent, it's kind of only shaped in what falls into that kind of left-right paradigm of dissent rather than, a universal thing. That's why you see, Democrats and Republicans get into bed with each other constantly when it comes to, let's say, foreign policy and starting in the military-industrial complex and things like that, where you don't see those other voices of dissent, and a lot of times the people working in the media, no one wants to think of themselves as I totally only toe the government's line. No one thinks of themselves that way, and so it's, I think it was Noam Chomsky who kind of talked about that idea and Matt Taibbi, another person who kind of talks about that idea of in the media, they're hiring people that they know will kind of push the agenda they want served. And those people who they're hiring, they don't realize that the agendas they're working for, because they believe it most of the time.
Well, Tyrell,
go ahead.
You've always told me this and made me aware of it to always think about this too. You and deserve credit for it. You always tell me, look at who CNN hires as who they want for, when they seek counsel on what the government should do. They're right. I mean, it's a who's who of the intelligence community. The former heads of the NSA, the former heads of this, heads of that. Well, what policy do you think they're going to be pumping out there? They're going to be mouthing out whatever the government policy is that they want to get done. And again, it comes back for me to the harsh word, the word I hate, and the whole concept that I think is one of the worst things ever devised by man, and that is colonialism.
That is not only a huge part of this problem, but getting the message out there in a way that people are actually willing to grasp. And that's why, as we alluded to, I mean, his voice is so important.
Well, you're someone to me that represents like a true patriot. And I think what we see now, no, seriously, like to me, and also very reasonable, like it's not dogmatic in a sense that it's just a team. It's you see the importance of the collective, and that's always important to me. But right now, the divisiveness, divisiveness is so out of control, and it's by design. And a lot of people seem to be confusing nationalism with patriotism. And this is something that I've always thought of you very highly on this, because it's clear that you understand that distinction. And just today watching the January 6th, there was more footage released from that fiasco. And these people believe that they're patriots.
Oh, I know. I talked about that today on Substack, and I said that I actually watched some of that today again, and as outraged as I am over what took place, because I am outraged, I'm outraged over the fact that these people claim to be patriots and believe they are, and yet they marched a Confederate flag through my Capitol, and no one's apologized for that. Nobody's come out and said, that was wrong officially. And that irks me that didn't happen. But what I actually felt, though, in a little bit watching today, I actually had a little sympathy for the poor people that were there breaking in, because they got duped by the ultimate duper.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. They believed they were doing right. They believed he called them out to go save the country. And they truly believed, when they got up there and were rushing the Capitol to stop the election and screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," they were that narrow-minded and believed so much that they were doing the work of Donald Trump, and believed that it was a patriotic work being done. Now the question is, how do we convince these people that they got bamboozled? I'll always remember Malcolm X saying that, "You've been bamboozled," when Denzel played him in the movie Malcolm X, "You've been bamboozled." How do we go about convincing these people that they were bamboozled and that they should take a hard look at their position and what they're standing for, and what they did that day was the exact opposite of what a patriot would do? How do they learn that that's what they did, or can they at all?
I think those people need help understanding what it is in general, like what we're supposed to be as a country. A lot of those same people are the same build the wall people that are so anti-immigrant, so xenophobic, and just really they're people. And to them, that's an America first type of mentality. These people are nationalists, not patriots. And I think that, to me, that's the scary part. Like, we're seeing this fascist thing, this populism thing. And in 2016, I feel like we had a choice for it to go left or right. Like, populism was rising, and Bernie would have been the better option, but they just didn't take that seriously. And so now we're having this like right-wing fascist uprising, and it's nationalism, and it's freaking me out.
Well, first of all, though, let me get you on one. Bernie ain't the answer. I know that firsthand, because when Bernie was making his run against Hillary, he came to Minneapolis. I went down there as the ultimate independent with thoughts that I might endorse him. But after he avoided me when I got down there, and then he gave me 2 minutes in the hallway, which allowed me to ask him the real question. I said, Senator, if you lose the Democratic nomination to Secretary Clinton, will you support a third party run, or will you yourself run third party? And he looked me right in the eye, absolutely, and said, absolutely not. I will support Secretary Clinton 100%. I just turned around and walked out then. I left because I thought he's deceiving the public. Bernie is. And here's what I mean by it. Bernie's not an independent. He's a Democrat. He just runs and wants that I by his name. But when push comes to shove, he's a Democrat. He's going to jump in line with the party, which is what he did. He showed me that day that he was going to support Hillary no matter what. And here, everything he was talking about was pretty anti what Hillary was talking about. You know, trying to get the nomination. Well, come on. You know, so I don't like the fact that Bernie calls himself an independent. He's really not. He's a Democrat who likes to call himself an independent. And
well,
go ahead.
And you are a true independent in every sense of the word, but you are also somebody that a lot of people were gravitating to in 2020, hoping that you would run on the Green Party ticket. And the reason I think you are a unique individual for this particular time in history is because while I do believe we are at the point where I think there is enough juice where a true independent outsider could come in and actually cause a stir, potentially even pull it off.
I think you could win.
Yeah. And you are in a very unique position because you've been a mayor and a governor. You are not just some, person who's on the outside saying the system's broken, which it is, and I'm the one to fix it. How about the system is broken? I am from the outside. And by the way, I've actually done this before and I know what needs to be done. That's where I think you really separate yourself. And you are also somebody who does not give a flying F about what anybody else thinks. You will say whatever the hell is on your mind. And that is why people gravitated to Trump in the first place.
It is.
And you, on the other hand, are somebody who actually gives a damn about the American people, not just himself, like our former president.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. There's not much I can say that it's thank you that you feel that way. I'm honest. That's the big thing out of me. I'm going to tell you what I feel and then be honest about it. I feel somewhat responsible for Trump because in my own weird way, because when I did win here, he immediately came here and visited me. And did photo ops with me and all this stuff. And at the time, we embraced him because we were at the point we were ready to embrace anybody. We wanted to start a third party movement, and somebody with money like him and connections like him would be good, we thought. But then he's made a complete change of who he is. And he never changed who he was. You just got to be around him longer to understand what he really is. And when I came to realize what he really is, then I wanted no part of him whatsoever. But no, I agree with you. And I say this in all seriousness. I don't have mechanism. I don't have boots on the ground. People think I have entourages. You know who my secretary is? My wife. And she's getting up in years now, as we both are, to where she doesn't deserve that position anymore. She deserves retirement from it. So when I say that, I'll tell you this, I'd run for president in 2024 if a couple things happened. If a grassroots thing out there got me ballot access in all 50 states, because that's what it would require. They make it that way. You have to jump through different hoops in every state. So you have to have boots on the ground there, people to do the signing of petitions and all the BS that goes with it. because nothing is done. There's not a separate standard form to get on the ballot. Every state's different. But if I could get on the ballot in all 50 states, I pretty much guarantee I could shame them into letting me in the debates. And I can pretty much tell you this. If I have ballot access in all 50 states and I'm allowed in the debates, get ready. Because that's exactly what happened in Minnesota. They didn't think I could win, and I've always been. And I conclude the Dems and Repubs under one roof here when I say this: if I can debate them, I can beat them. Because, go ahead.
No, please finish. My apologies.
Well, that's how I feel about it, because I don't run against the candidates. In Minnesota, I didn't. I run against the parties, and I portray the candidates. These are just puppets. These are just puppets who are controlled by the money in the party. Whoever they send out is a puppet. That's all they are. And so if you want a puppet, vote for them. If you want somebody real who you think will talk to you directly and has no strings attached, vote for me. And I think that would prevail right now if you could get the ballot access and be allowed in the debates. But you got to remember the status quo. The two parties would do everything to stop you from achieving that.
Jesse, would you have any objection pertaining to the specific party? I mean, right now, the only two parties that really have the ability to do 50 state ballot access would be Libertarian and Green. I think there's going to be a puncher's chance with Andrew Yang's Forward Party.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on Andrew's, we're friendly with Andrew. We've had him on. He endorsed Jen when she ran for Congress. I really think that he's got a lot of great ideas, but his main focus with the Forward Party is ranked choice voting and open primaries.
Well,
what are your thoughts on the Forward Party?
Andrew Yang's the hope. Andrew Yang is the hope out there right now, because there ain't no hope with the Greens and there ain't no hope with the Libertarians. Both of them have been around long enough that they should have made an impact. Both of them have not made any impact. I dabbled with the Greens. They were horrifying. Not only were they split and fractured, it would have required me to mend the fence or attempt to bring them together to get focused. And then I'm supposed to do that and then turn around and face the Democrats and Republicans with a fractured party? Ain't going to happen. That's why I dropped out and from them. You want to know the quote I got from the Greens? From some of them? Is he one of us?
Jen, what do you always say about the Greens?
The problem with the Greens is, it's first of all, they're just too niche. The sound is niche, the name is niche. You're not going to appeal to middle America, regular labor people, which is what we need as a labor party. And when those people hear the Green Party, they think about a bunch of hippies or whatever, or about a bunch of tree hugging hippies. Now, I know that the Green Party is more than that, but I'm just saying it's not. I always say what you just said. They've had long enough to go somewhere, and they just can't. They just don't seem to be able to do it.
They don't want to. They don't want to. Fox News threw me in the mix. Just Fox News did. I polled 18%. 18. And the Green Party could have had that. They could have started at 18%, which by any stretch would have got us in the debates. And they were, I had to walk away shaking my head from them. And today, do you want to know where they're at today? They actually, some of them call up and threaten me today over the vaccine.
Oh man!
Oh, for God's sake!
Because I happen to get vaccinated. I'm over 70. I've had issues with my lungs. I felt it was the best move for me personally, so I got vaccinated. Now they're accusing me of disregarding non-vaxxers. The only thing I've said about non-vaxxers, it's your choice. And here's what I've said about it. If you decide not to vaccine and you catch it and you're going to die from it, don't come crying about it. It's a choice you made. You made the choice not to get vaccinated. And if it turns out to be the wrong choice, well, then bear it up and accept you made the wrong choice. But, I have these people, greenies, calling me now. I had to tell them, don't ever call me again at home. disrupting my day like on a Sunday morning.
It is absolutely incredible how so many people in politics have such lack of self-awareness in regards to what it takes to build coalitions properly. That's a huge part of what needs to be done. You're not going to agree with people on everything. One of the best things that, that you can say about certain people of certain political persuasions is that people who have more of that independent, libertarian, if you will, mindset is we need to protect our civil liberties. We need to end these wars, and we need to remove the for-profit middlemen out of our way regarding our doctors and whatnot. There is so many common sense solutions to so many of these problems, and yet so many people always manage to figure out a way to pick the most minute, benign thing and say, "Oh, I hate that person. That person's a problem. I can't deal with them anymore."
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that quite a bit. I was in DC watching the Hawks for 7 years and was living out there. And I met all types of political activists, from the professional to the grassroots, all levels of it. And one of the tragedies that I saw occurring is that, they'll get behind a candidate, or they'll get behind somebody or a movement or whatever, generally a candidate or somebody. And then the moment that candidate says something that, let's say, they disagree with, they could agree on like 75% of everything else that person says, but then let's say that person disagrees with them on one political issue. Well, then that person's tossed out, or they're called a traitor, or they're disingenuous to the cause, or whatever it might be. Well, you're never going to find a perfect candidate. You're never going to find someone that you 100% would agree with all the time, and then expect millions upon millions of other people to also agree with that, to agree 100% across the board. What you have to look for at the end of the day is the person coming at it with integrity, because you can have political disagreements, but as long as they have integrity behind what they're trying to do, we can't be so divisive, especially when you're trying to build a third party. You're trying to build a alternative to the Democrat and Republican stranglehold, is that you can't have that kind of divisiveness amongst the activists.
I've been educating Tyrell over one thing that I'll educate you guys on now too, is that I'm a genius. No, I just want you all to know that I'm openly admitting I am a genius. Do you know what qualifies me as a genius today?
What would that be?
I have common sense. And today, if you have common sense, I'm educating Tyrell on this. If you have common sense today, that makes you a genius.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
that
very
brings you to
unusual.
genius level. If you have common sense, you get up close. You're up getting to genius level.
Yeah,
and you know what? It's like and Jesse, like you brought up Tyrell. Something as simple as the vaccine. There's this idea that there's only two answers to vaccines. Everyone should be forced to get it, or no one should have to take it. And it's like,
I just can't believe we're still talking about this.
Like, this is such lunacy. Like, you're never going to live in a country where you're going to be forced to do something. Otherwise, you'll really have a civil war. But if somebody chooses to get vaccinated, leave them the F alone. And if somebody chooses not to get vaccinated, leave them the F alone.
I find it so weird that this is a hill that so many people are wanting to die on.
Oh, yeah. And they do.
I don't understand. Like, there's so many bigger things to talk about. Like, it's bizarre.
I couldn't believe this greenie calls me at home to ream me out over it. Over such, it made me angry, and I told him, "Don't ever call me again. Do not ever call me again."
Well, a lot of that is because I think that we've been conditioned now to believe that when you talk politics with someone, or you talk issues with people that affect us all, we've been conditioned to believe that we have to talk about them like you see two people battling on ESPN over their favorite sports teams. We've kind of been conditioned to believe that, well, if you don't agree with me, it's my way or the highway, and how dare you question my judgment, or how dare, and I think that's been something that was kind of created for ratings that is now filtered into the rest of society, because of, we're also a society adapting to everyone having a voice on social media. And so when you have when you have your mainstream media turning every political issue, no matter what it might be, into a right or a left dogfight with two people yelling at each other all day, that mentality then will gradually seep its way into how human beings talk to each other. And when we're forced to, with social media, which we all love, social media is a great thing. Everyone being able to say how they feel or post pictures of their family or whatever it is. That's a great outlet for people, but at the same time, it's also kind of conditioned us to constantly be at each other's throats if there's a disagreement.
And I want to thank mainstream media, especially lately, because I'd be losing sleep right now if I wasn't getting the blow-by-blow description of Johnny Depp's trial. I mean,
that was so important, though, Jesse.
It's very. I would watch it.
I'm watching this on CNN, going, why? Right. These are two arrogant actors, pompous, that live in a whole nother world from other normal people. Why do we care that they can't get along?
Well,
it ain't the first time Hollywood people have been divorced and gotten angry with each other and said bad things about each other. I mean, how many times was Liz Taylor married? I don't know. How is it newsworthy?
Who cares? But what's amazing is it gets the same amount of time as the Derek Chauvin case. Like when we were watching that trial, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, this. You realize, people, this is a civil case as to who pays who. Why do we care? There's no justice involved here. This is not our concern.
Well, and that's what gets me, is that people, obviously it gets ratings or they wouldn't put it on. And is that really how the dumbing down of America has occurred now? That we have to hear about Britney Spears and what's going on with, somebody has her rights to this or that or whatever. And these are national. So it reminds me, when I had that little foray with MSNBC, I fought with them immediately because all they wanted me to cover was Lacey Peterson's death.
Oh.
And I said, wait a minute, there were 10,000 murders. Why does this one deserve national attention? There were 10,000 tragedies of people being murdered, right when Lacey got murdered, and why is this one important?
Because unfortunately, you can trace a lot of this back to two major political decisions in the 80s and 90s, 1987 with Ronald Reagan, the removal of the Fairness Doctrine, and then the one that put it on steroids. Yes, Mr. Bill Clinton decided to implement the 1996 Telecom Act. That is what put media where it is today, which it is all TMZ all the time. That's all that matters. It's all about ratings. It is not about informing the public. And if you inform the public, you might lose money. So to me, that's really what it's about. That's the whole mindless point of Johnny Depp and the whole fiasco. It's, again, we saw what happened during the OJ trial. They're like, oh, yeah, we got to do this all the time now. Like, come on. This is easy.
Well, no, if that were like on the entertainment channel, I'd be like, all right,
yeah,
I get that. But it's not. It's on the news channel, which we know here that that's not news. That's, the stenographer for corporate government. But other people think that's news. And so that's what they think they're getting for news. And that satisfies them.
It's interesting because it is very scary. Well, it's interesting when we were doing Hawks, which were, 5 nights a week, live every night, me and Tabitha Wallace, and we were watching the Hawks. What was interesting is that we came to our news director at one point and said, look, as a presenter, as someone who's delivering this information, it's hard not to become cynical and depressed, constantly talking about the worst aspects of important news stories, important things that you want to talk about. Thankfully we didn't cover, pop entertainment stuff, or if we did, we tried to take it from an angle that actually, this is why it would affect you. But one of the things we went to the news director and said, hey, we're going to try an experiment. Could we at least once a month do a show that's only dedicated to good news? It's only dedicated to not just, the fireman who saves the cat in the tree, but like actual, things, science, things that people are doing that are actually benefiting humanity or their community or things like that. And brave enough, thankfully they gave us the green light because we had editorial control. So they couldn't really stop us, but maybe, but we were able to do that. And what was interesting about that is those shows that we were able to do actually got clicks. They actually got ratings, and we had a huge feedback of people emailing us saying, Thank you. Thank you for spending a half hour out of my day telling me about the good that's happening in the world as opposed to just all the negative. And there is a hunger for that out there. I just think that we're kind of caught in a loop where nobody wants to really take that leap. No one wants to take that jump, because at the end of the day, it is easier to talk about what you're pissed off about.
Yeah, and good isn't as exciting usually.
You know, but I think there's hunger for it, though. I really saw that after doing those shows.
I really want you, Jesse, to put on the presidential cap right now, because the one thing that we really try to emphasize on this show is just how powerful the executive branch really is. There is an insane amount. I can't even begin to describe how much misinformation is put out there.
Like Biden can't do this, can't do that.
Or that Biden has done the most executive orders in a first term. Like, have people not heard of FDR? Like, do people not realize that this guy did like 4,000 executive orders in his presidency and Biden has done 70? Like, the rewriting of history is incredible. But as the chief executive, you would have immense power. So something as simple as using the bully pulpit. Like right now, if you were president, what would you be out there saying regarding, let's say, the gun debate? Like, what would be a sensible conversation to the American people to say, this is what would make sense for the most, for the majority, overwhelming majority of the country. And you can do that through a litany of different items. Something as simple as decriminalizing cannabis, which I know you and Jen would love, but in the case of just starting with the gun reform, if you were the commander in chief, what would you be doing right now?
Well, I've taken a new position on the Second Amendment in light of what's going on in the world and in light of these mass shootings that are going on. And my new position on the Second Amendment is this. I believe everyone should be able to buy whatever weapons they want to buy that are legal. You know, we don't allow full automatic right now, so you can't get full automatic. They have this assault weapon. Let's get rid of assault weapons. But the reality is an assault weapon is not any more deadly than a high-powered deer hunting rifle. They truly are not. They shoot one bullet at a time, and but assault weapon looks worse, and it can, and, it does the damage. But here's my new position. You can own all the weapons you want. You can own them all. And you can sit on your private property and you can be Donald Trump. And you can put on a Rambo headband and you can sit there and look like Rambo and sit there with your AR-15 and do all the stuff you want to do on your own front step. But my new position is this. No guns allowed in public unless that gun and person are properly registered and licensed to carry. No more guns in public. You can have them on private property all you want. If you're a hunter, you load them up in your car, you take them apart. You drive them to where you're going hunting, and you put them back together when you get there. And then you disassemble them in all modes of travel so that they are no longer operable. That is my new position on the Second Amendment. Own all the weapons you want on your own private property. But if you're going to be out in public with a weapon, that you have to be duly licensed to carry that weapon. And because, see, I was the author of Conceal and Carry in Minnesota. And what did I do? I made it shall issue, because before that it was up to the police chief. Well, that's too subjective. If you're down in the city, you can't get one. If you're in northern Minnesota, up where the deer are at, they hand them out like popcorn. So what I did was shall issue. You had to pass an accredited gun training course. You had to go to the range and shoot a minimum of 70. You could have 0 alcohol in your system while you're carrying, and you cannot, carry that weapon and drink or do any alcohol or any drugs of any type. So if you have strict things like that in the use of the weapons, you're not going to have crazies out there carrying them to begin with. And if they are, they'll be in violation of the law. So that's my new position on the Second Amendment. Own all you want on your own private property. That way you can defend your house against anybody, including the government, who's going to come down on you, which is why the Second Amendment was written, because the British used to come over here and occupy our houses and take our stuff. That's why they have the Second Amendment. And so this still allows that, but what it does is it stops guns out in public. That's the way it is in Mexico. You can't have a gun in public in Mexico, or you go right to Mexican prison.
What would be your position as far as executive orders go? There is a lot of things we've talked about on the show. We really try to hone in on the most concrete message, that is corporate special interests absolutely own our government. It is the biggest reason why we don't have anything. Medicare prices were just increased 14.5%, the largest increase in our nation's history. Why is that? Well, could it be the $47 million in campaign money that the Biden administration took as a result of running for president? You know, to me, it is so easily correlated when you look at how this money completely dissolves any semblance of a working democratic republic. We do not have that now. This is full-blown oligarchy. But if you were president, you would have the authority to decriminalize cannabis. You could expand Medicare to everybody during a healthcare emergency. You could declare a national emergency via the building a clean energy grid because of the climate crisis. There are so many things that the president could do, and yet people are twiddling their thumbs thinking, oh, Joe just doesn't, he just can't do it.
It's Joe Manchin's fault.
Yeah. It's of course the president could do it. He just doesn't because
he doesn't care to.
Well, that's true too.
Well, they're all paid off. That's the problem. You had a Supreme Court that made a ruling that said money was free speech. Now, excuse me, if you bribe someone in the private sector, you go to jail. But you're perfectly fine in bribing people in the public sector. That's called a campaign contribution. So see, the problem arises from the Supreme Court again. You got these 9 people that sit up there. They can never leave. They're there for life. And they get to make all the decisions that have some of the greatest impact on our daily lives, like calling money free speech. Well, then why can't you go rob the bank and say you're just exercising your free speech? You're just going there to get some free speech. If that's what money is, which is we know is bogus. And so the minute that they allowed that, say goodbye to your elections, because these guys are nothing more. That's the one thing I can say. And I think you guys should know this. When I ran for governor of Minnesota, do you know how much money I raised?
It wasn't a lot.
That's one of those things he would he knows.
You don't need to know. 300,000.
Yeah.
And it was all done in $50 donations from citizens.
That's less money than we raised.
$50 ain't going to get you in the door. If you think you can donate $50 and the governor's going to then give you a half hour next Tuesday, it ain't going to happen. So the first thing I did when I got into office, I pulled my staff together and said, look, I didn't take any PAC money. I don't have any special interest money controlling me. So therefore, I don't want to meet with any lobbyists at all. And I put the word out, lobbyists weren't welcome. And oh my God, you should have seen how they wanted me gone. I mean, these are how they earn their living. They earn their living getting access so they can bribe the public officials.
That is a great place to wind down the conversation, guys. One of the things that we have noticed in the time that we've been involved in politics, I don't think people really understand how much the consultant class is a cottage industry in politics, and it works on both sides. But the big difference between the Republicans and Democrats, Jesse, in the Republican Party, if you're a consultant, you better be a winner, because if you don't win, you're done. In the Democratic Party, you can be a 10-time loser and they'll still hire you for the job.
Well, remember this, though, too. The money people, right, that provide the dough to both sides, remember, they go to both conventions. It's like a football game. If you bet on both teams, you don't lose, do you?
Correct.
There you go. So what they've done, they'll go to the Democratic convention, payola there. Then they go hit the Repubs, payola there. So it doesn't matter to them who wins. They've got both sides paid off. And the only time that don't happen is when somebody like me comes along. and throws the fly in the old ointment.
Oh, please. How do we do that? How do we make that happen?
I'll pass it on to my son. Let's talk my son into running. He's younger.
I don't think you can transfer that. Like, I appreciate that. Like, if it was a business, like, I get that.
Tyrell, if you
wait. No, I wanted to tell something based on what Jesse was just saying. So one of the books that I read, this was long before Bernie or whatever, and I've been a fan of yours for a long time, was Democrats with Bloodikins. And I loved that book. That to me was more like, I read that before like Bernie's run in, I don't know, because I read that like a couple years before. And your whole, like the way you see these parties, I mean, you compare them to gangs. To me, the leadership are like gangs, but the followers are like cult. So, but it's the tribalism, and they don't want to do anything about it because they just want to stay where they are because they're just feeding at the trough.
Yep, exactly, completely. The change has to come from us.
Yes.
Yeah, ultimately, it's like everyone bitches about government, and I will finish off. Here's a great way. Everyone bitches about government, yet the only place you have to look is in the mirror, because we're electing these people. We're sending them there.
Yeah.
And as long as we continue to do that, how can you gripe? We keep sending them there. We keep allowing the Democrats and Republicans to control the agenda, and we don't have to, but we're a bunch of freaking lemmings.
We need to get you with Andrew Yang and like maybe spark some sort of like political love connection. I don't know, but like,
well, we're Andrew. I can tell you this: Andrew and I have already connected. We've already talked on the phone. I'll say this about Andrew Yang: when I watched the Democratic debates when he was in them, he was the first guy I said, "There's the first guy that's going to leave the Democrats." When I watched the debates and I saw them all laying out what they were and who they were, and we were just getting introduced to Andrew, and I said right there, I said, when I listened and watched that, I said, there's the first guy that's going to jump ship and realize the Dems ain't no better than the Republicans.
Can you believe that they are really going to try to force feed Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris on us? I honestly,
yes, I do believe that.
But I do think we're getting to the point. I think we are at that breaking point. And I think if you had run in 20, there still would have been a lot of very scared people regarding Trump. But I do think we've seen the governance of Biden, and we are reminded even more so under him than even Trump, just how broken this system is. And if somebody like you got out there, oh boy, it'd be very interesting.
I'll just finish.
It's also,
guys, I'll let Ty have it at the end, but I'll finish by saying to you, I just did a podcast with two young guys in Kansas City, and I told them the same damn thing. The only way it's going to happen for me is for people like you to make it happen. Get out there. I don't have people on the ground.
Where's your staff, Jesse? Where's your staff?
I don't have one. That's the point. If you elect Jesse Ventura, you're electing an individual human being to that office who comes with no baggage. That's good enough for most of us. But the problem is, how do you clear the hurdle to make it happen? That's got to come from people like you. You guys got to pick up the ball and run with it to block in front of me. I gotta have big linemen in front of me knocking people down so I can try to score a touchdown. I can't score it without you.
I think having you on the ballot at a bare minimum is absolutely a good thing. And I think what your message is much needed, especially now. And I think we are headed for a very, very dangerous point in our nation's history. It's getting worse by the day. We have no living wage. We have no health care. We have unbelievable runaway inflation. At what point do you think the country is just going to sit back and take it? No, if people think what happened at Justice Kavanaugh's house the other day is like, that's the tip of the iceberg. That is like a warning of what's coming if you're not careful, and stuff has to get done. Tyrell, please finish us out.
Well, man, three great voices to try to finish this up, man. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think what people I think also too is that what people have to understand, and what people who are trying to change things have to remember, is don't always get lulled into the sexiness of federal politics. The issues of government that affect you directly are what is happening at your local city hall and your local state houses, and we have to, if you want to take down the giant, you have to start at you do have to start and try to cut the legs out from underneath it. You know, the more third-party candidates, the more people that are there to represent themselves and their community, and that's it. That we can get elected to your county seats, your local government seats, your state seats. That's where that tidal wave needs to start. Because just focusing at the top, you're not going to chop the head off and expect the beast to die. It's a hydra at the end of the day. And that overcoming that task to me is is insurmountable compared to hitting it on the level of local elections and things of that nature. And one of the things we're doing on Substack, me and Jesse, is we're trying to highlight, starting in Minnesota and then hopefully across the country, we're trying to highlight candidates who are running against the system in order to change that system on local and state levels, because we need to get more awareness on that level to begin with if we're truly going to change and redirect this country. But you're absolutely right. People are sick and tired of it. And you could also look at that as a good thing. I mean, think about it. The biggest swells of candidates who've gotten the most publicity, not bought publicity, but the most publicity in our last few election cycles were Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Whether you agree with them or not, they were two wildly populistic candidates, which means that the American people are ready for that change. They want that change, and they're looking for those leaders out there to make that change happen. So I look at that as a positive, even though we had to live through 4 years of Donald, which was horrific. I still look at what the action behind it as a positive.
No, it was actually really great.
The key there is this. If you're talking about the president, you need somebody who has served before.
Thank you. That's what I always say.
You need somebody who has at least stuck their big toe into government for 4 years and knows how it operates. Like, people have called me up and said, "Ooh, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is going to run for president." Well, The Rock's the most handsome guy in the world. He'd probably get the majority of female votes, and he might win. Who knows? But they asked me,
and male votes.
Well, they said, "Would you run with The Rock?" And I said, well, I'd consider it, but what I'd prefer The Rock to do is get elected to something else first. Go out and learn what it's like to hold an office and deal with the machinery of what is government. Because I got news for you. You're not going to walk in there and change the course of that machinery easily. It is extremely difficult to even move the course of that machinery, to nudge it. And so I would say get elected to something else first. And Ty, you're saying local. Well, that means Jesse Ventura now should run for county commissioner or something?
No, so you've already done
I'm
it.
Teasing you. No, I'm teasing you.
No, you've already done it. You've already done that move. You're all set. You're primed for the presidency.
I'm primed for it.
I mean it. I mean it on in terms of plus. Also,
no, I understand.
We also need leaders. People are always saying, "Oh, where are the leaders at? Where are the new leaders at?" Well, you only can get those leaders if people get that momentum on local.
But then again, we want leaders that don't become
into that.
But then again, we want leaders who don't become career politicians.
Exactly.
And
because the difference is you go, like I always say, I go and serve, and when I'm done serving, I go back to the private sector. And then I might come back 6-8 years later and serve again. But I don't go from one election to the next.
It's not a career.
It's not a career. Exactly. It is not a career. That's why I'm a statesman. They're politicians.
And for everybody who's out there that is so tired of the two-party system and they want something different, guys, everything is local. City council, county commission, school board. You want to be the mayor, nonpartisan races.
Do you know what else you can do locally? Here's something, jump on this bandwagon. Why do they allow political parties' names on the ballot?
Correct.
Put only the candidate's name. Then it becomes every citizen has to educate themselves. Who is John Smith and what does he stand for? See, the parties make it easy. If you're conservative, you don't care what the name is. You look for Republican. If you're liberal or progressive, you look for Democrat or Green or whatever. Take away party names and only put on the ballot the name of the candidate with no political parties whatsoever. I would rather have that and people going in and doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo than what you got right now.
Yeah.
Could we convince you guys to come back after November 9th when the absolute slaughter of the midterms takes place? And then we can really start talking about what 2023 should say, because that's really when it starts.
Yeah.
But guys, please, 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 jesseventura.substack.com. In fact, I will write it out again. If you are not subscribed, please get over there and subscribe, because if you're going to get the real hard-hitting stuff that we need to hear,
you have to get off of censored
and
media.
It's die first, then quit. You know where that comes from? That's a Navy SEAL slogan in training. They tell you die first, then quit. Well, I took that slogan because that applies to me now. Is I'm going to die first before I stop talking. Then I'll quit.
This is why
when I die will be when I quit speaking out. That's why I named the show Die First, Then Quit.
You are an absolute national treasure, and you're pretty good yourself too, Tyrell. Jesse Ventura, Tyrell Ventura, thank you so much for coming on Generational Change. We hope to see you guys again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. A true legend in every sense of the word.
and Ty's voice, God, he's got a great voice,
Well,
like a really good radio voice. Well, he's got, yes, and he's cute, but he's got a really good voice. Yeah, that was awesome. That was really, although now really, other than the only other get that I have out there, people, no, Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg are my own, like really the only other two people. And then I think I might be complete.
Well, if you guys would like to speak with another wonderful person who we are very high on and happens to be in New York City. As you know, a lot of political happenings happen in New York, but a very important congressional race is taking place in the heart of the city, New York's 10th congressional district.
It's Chinatown, Lower East Side, and some part of Brooklyn, I think. We're going to find out.
We're going to learn more about this wonderful redrawn district, who is a DSA endorsed candidate, endorsed by a lot of wonderful people.
She is a sitting state representative in New York right now, and is looking to get, I forget, what's the number? Is it the 10th?
It is New York's 10th congressional district. Yes.
And the other person in that primary that I know of is Bill de Blasio.
Well, we all know whoever Bill de Blasio is running against, we would definitely like in first place. But in this case, we really like this wonderful candidate.
Her name is Yuh-Line Niou. And I'm hoping I said that remotely good. I looked it up phonetically.
Is that good? Yuh-Line Niou? Did we say it right?
Yuh-Line Niou. No. Oh, my God. I looked it up. All right, bring her on. Bring her on. Now she's going to say it, but I'm so sorry.
Welcome to Generational Change. Please how you say it correctly.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. My name is Yuh-Line Niou. Actually, it's Yuh-Line, like Yuh-Line to the left, and then Niou, like New York.
To the left.
Okay. But Yuh-Line I got right. I got the first part right.
Yes.
Yuh-Line, tell us why you decided to make this tremendous leap. Obviously, being an assemblywoman in New York, we are huge, huge fans of New York politics, if for no other reason, because we do believe that if there is a state that is going to pass universal health care first, it will be New York.
Yeah.
There is I know it's, listen, we're well aware of the two state senators are in the way right now, but we're working on that. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a real true progressive trend left. But in this case, there is an opportunity to run for federal office. So what made you decide to make this big transition?
Sure. I mean, so one of the biggest things, obviously, is that this is a really rare opportunity, right? So I'm running for Congress because this district is a rare opportunity to give real representation to a lot of the vulnerable communities that have literally, actually, never had their own representation on the federal level before. When I won my first election to the state assembly in 2016, I was the first Asian American to ever represent Manhattan's Chinatown. So if you think about that, in over a century, I was the first and the only. And so, we know right now that our rights are under attack, not just our bodily autonomy as women, but Republicans are literally waging all-out war against free and fair elections, against voting rights, against our right to not be murdered by a mass shooter. I've fought and won those fights in Albany, and the time is right for Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn to have a proven advocate and lawmaker in Congress. And I think that it's really important for us to have representation that has a lot of different perspectives. And I think that we are all here with our lenses, our different experiences, trying to drive towards making the best policy possible. And I think that I add a valuable lens.
Yeah, I think that's great. So your district, I know it's Chinatown, it's Lower East Side, and then is it part of Brooklyn? I know it's something, there's another borough involved in this.
Yeah, so New York 10 contains, all of Manhattan's, Lower Manhattan's area, so 14th Street and below. So the entire tip of Manhattan. And then we have Brooklyn, which is, parts of Dumbo. It goes to Park Slope, Red Hook, Sunset Park, and then also goes all the way and touches Bay Ridge. So it's actually right there. And so there's a lot of, Brooklyn as well. And so it's the first time that we might have this opportunity, because New York 10 actually contains both Manhattan and Brooklyn Chinatowns as we know it, and is 1/4 Asian American. It represents a really big opportunity to increase much needed AAPI representation in Congress. Because as you know, even though we have 7% of the population in America, Asian Americans do, we have less than 1% of the representation in Congress. And so we are the least represented, racial and ethnic group in Congress.
So this is where gerrymandering helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where your benefit. Well, yes, because if you're getting 2 Chinatowns in one district, that's a benefit in terms of, having a stronger voice. This is one of those times where gerrymandering is on our side.
And representation.
Well, actually, the thing is, the reason why there is this district, though, is because there was no the special master was called in because of gerrymandering. And so they had to redistrict everything. And actually, they took into account the fact that Asian Americans should vote together, and we're right there next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of Ted Lieu, there isn't anybody that just automatically comes off the top of my head that I could think of.
Which is I've never thought about it. It's just one of those things.
We have some amazing representation. All right. So even in New York, we have Grace Meng, and then we would be doubling the representation, including me. So, when I first went to the assembly, I also doubled the Asian American representation there, went from 1 to 2. And so, I think that it's a trend that we should keep going.
I don't normally like the idea of the identity issue even being a factor, but the reality is that everybody needs somebody that represents them and represents their community. That's the whole point.
Understands their culture.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not I don't like it when it's terms of people play whatever that card is, but I absolutely like it when it's somebody that comes from that community. It can be used as a weapon, but it's also important for people to be represented. That's why this is really a good opportunity.
Well, for example, what you're saying is, interesting, because I think that, for example, when we're helping to make sure that people have language access, period, it's everybody gets helped, right? When you're talking about language access and seeing hey, guess what? We have a bunch of people here who need language access. It's a lens that's really important to have. Therefore, everybody, is getting that language access. It's just for example, I talk about this a lot because I myself have a disability. And so we're talking about disability issues. It's actually everybody, and everything is a disability issue. Every issue is a disability issue, and everybody is affected because, even if you're able-bodied now or, don't have a learning disability now, you might have one later. And, it's if we build ramps for everyone, everybody's going to use it, right? You have a suitcase, sometimes you have to roll, right? And it's so that it's helping everybody, if you're making sure that you're having that access point.
And the truth is, this is one of those things where we shouldn't even have to be arguing about that stuff. I don't know whether I'll ever need a wheelchair ramp. I might not ever need a wheelchair ramp, but I feel good about other people having access to that. Like, it's one of those things where people, you might not have children, but you're better off having public schools so that your citizens are educated. Like, these are just things that benefit the collective, right? Like, this is just,
and there's that word again.
The collective. Then people call me a communist. I would kind of be a good communist. I would. Like, I love the idea of a uniform. I love the idea of a uniform. But like, I think that it's a very important thing to see the collective and recognize, like, even if you are in great health, don't you want to be surrounded by other healthy people? Like, why? Like, we're all better off when we're all better off. It's just not that complicated. And people get so kind of spiteful and angry because people are desperate and unhappy and poor. And so they're running around trying to live, and it's hard to be happy for other people when you feel like you're so screwed. So then they say, oh, it's those people. That's why. It's the immigrants, it's the Mexicans, it's whoever, whatever group of people, right? It's the Haitians. Yeah, they're the problem.
The Republicans are using this language with their weird replacement theory thing, right? It's like so horrifying because they're literally saying that, immigrants like myself are replacers, and it's very, very harmful and scary because that's also what caused, some people to have. Yeah, I mean, the Buffalo shooting was because of this like horrible mindset that people have bought into and have targeted.
There's no shortage of Asian hate, and it's been really on the rise. Like, I don't know, like, do you know the numbers? Like, I heard something, I couldn't repeat the numbers, but I know that it's been bad. I know we've seen the videos of like little old Asian ladies getting the crap beat out of them, like just for standing in a doorway, like stuff like that. And I'm like, that could be like my bubby, like it's freaking me out. But like,
for saying
it's a problem.
Yeah, anti-Asian hate actually surged over 339% in 2021. It's a record.
That's because of China. That's because of that guy. It's because of China virus.
That's totally not true. That's totally not true. That's not why it happened. I was totally doing what I needed to do.
Whatever. No, he wanted to blame the Chinese and the Mexicans. He had a lot of people at issue.
He did. Yeah. I mean, he even said, it's Kung flu or the Chinese flu or like the Chinese virus, China virus. He said these things over and over and over again.
Over and over again.
And even if people. Yeah, and even if you're joking,
it's not
Mr. Trump.
Funny.
How do you think certain people in your group,
in your Mensa group,
do you think that they're going to react to this? They're going to see that people are getting sick and to think, oh, if we only got rid of the Asians, it would all be over.
It's the other. But the thing is, and I will tell you this, people, I'll say it until I die. Any of your problems in life, any of them, I don't care what they are, I don't care how poor you are, I don't care, are not caused by the people that are struggling more than you are. It is not caused by, you are not going to solve those problems by kicking down. It's not going to happen. So it's like, those are not the source of your problems. They have their whole own set of problems.
And I would assume that you're a big advocate for a real progressive agenda, living wage, universal health care, a Green New Deal.
You mean Asians like living wage too?
Oh, stop. Yeah. Could you talk about some of the policies that are very important to you?
Sure. I mean, I think that, some of the things that you just mentioned are really important, obviously. I mean, also just a reminder, 62 House Republicans actually voted against sending the Senate's anti-Asian hate crimes bill to President Biden for his signature.
Why? Can we just ask you, wait, stop your vibrating thing. What justification have people, have representatives, legislators, what justification have they given? I know it's not the truth, but like, what justification would somebody have for not signing that? Like, I don't understand. Like, what's the downside?
Less hate.
You don't know.
Yes.
Well, I mean, say something else, right? No, but somebody who's voting against that, if somebody were to ask them, why would you vote against it? That's not what they're going to say, right? Like, they have some sort of bogus. I'm just curious how you can justify that.
I mean, I would be curious too. I think that, again, issues that I really care about. Obviously, I'm a huge anti-poverty advocate. I think that really one of the things that we have to do is we have to make sure that not only do we have, healthcare that's preventative and housing that will help us to be able to, be able to stay safe. And I think that we also have to make sure that we are doing things that will stop people from being trapped in a cycle of debt. One of my biggest bills, has been, removing asset limits off of certain benefits. I think that's really important because sometimes it's just the administrative parts of like just checking to see if somebody fits within the asset limits of the program or something like that. That is actually more expensive and costs the state or the federal government even more money, billions of dollars actually, in administrative reasons, for just to prevent people from being able to get like SNAP benefits or just like basic food stamps. I think it's so silly to have these kinds of asset limits in place. One of the other things, that I had been a huge sponsor of is obviously making sure that we have protections for what we call the UDAP, the unfair, deceptive, abusive, and predatory practices. We need to make sure that we're prohibiting these practices. We need to, protect our consumers, protect our small businesses. In the state level, I actually sponsored a bill that is called the Consumer and Small Business Protection Act, which is an update to our GBL law, which is our consumer protection law, in order to make sure that we are, including unfair, just like the federal government can include unfair into, the law, and then also making it so that we are updating how much it would be to fine somebody if they actually were being unfair, deceptive, abusive, or predatory. I think that on the federal level, we need to continue to, stop, trapping people in a cycle of debt. We need to help people to get out of that kind of cycle. And then we have to make sure that we can, bank the unbanked and like make sure that there's asset building programs out there and like really be able to help to make sure that we have this like, progressive movement towards fair economic justice.
We're speaking with Yuh-Line
Yuh-Line Niou.
Perfect.
Yuh-Line. Because I was thinking like instead of like I would say like Jolene or Arlene. Okay, so it's lean. Like that was the L. So right.
Yuh-Line left.
Okay.
Yuh-Line Niou, candidate for U.S. Congress in New York's 10th Congressional District and New York State Assemblywoman. One of the advantages that both AOC and Jamal Bowman had when they ran for Congress and were able to win, not just that they were running a true grassroots campaign against corporate incumbents. When you campaign in a major city like New York City, there isn't as much ground that you need to cover in terms of
logistically. No, it's true. Like our district span 2 counties.
So would you say that the advantage of canvassing in order to meet everyday people that would be in the district, would you say that that's effective in terms of getting campaign volunteers and being able to meet a lot of the constituency?
I mean, I think so. I think I definitely, have, it just in my own building alone, probably the more population than some towns. And so I think that, it's different when it comes to doorbelling, door knocking, talking to folks. But I will say that, no one has the field operation and the volunteer operation that I've had, and I will say that I owe that a lot to the amazing young people and the amazing neighbors that I have in my district, because we're talking about right now over 700 volunteers already in just the first.
Wow.
I know.
Well, the fact that you're referring to the young people when I'm looking at you, you are the young people. You know that, right? Like, are you sending children out there? Like what is going on there?
Young people really gravitate towards our campaign because, yes, there are high school kids and college kids like who are gravitating towards our campaign. And we have so many young people who are just, really touching politics for the first time. I think that it's really about what they want to see. A lot of folks are involved in obviously the Sunrise Movement. I want to give them a shout out. They're amazing.
Love the Sunrise Movement.
The young people right now are wanting to see, that Congress, that the lawmakers that they're supporting are actually supporting them, allowing them to have the ability to live. Just today I was out with Triage, who is another organization of young people who are supporting climate, issues and like making sure that we have better language when it comes to climate issues, and that they're the ones who are also fighting to have better gun control, right? And I think that right now they've seen too many of their peers die in these mass shootings, and so many kids. I mean, the signs that they were holding today, like they broke my heart. When you're talking about the sign that says like students should be writing essays, not eulogies, like you like, what do you do with that, right? And so, right now it's important to know what our future wants. And I think that it's really important to listen to the voices of these young people who are very, very impassioned for change. And we know why they want that, because what we're doing constantly right now, the status quo is really hurting them. And I think that it's really important for us to answer that call.
Okay, wait, before we go though, I have to say, okay, so I've noticed a couple of things. Yuh-Line is both a cat and a dog person. And the dog,
I only have a dog. I only have one dog.
I could have sworn I saw a cat go across.
No, I saw the dog.
No, I saw the dog. You don't have a cat? No, I thought I saw a cat. And the dog has the white tip on his tail. Is it a he or a she?
It's a he. His name is Samson, and he's actually my service dog. Yeah.
Oh, he's amazing. And he's got a white tip on his tail, and it's very cool. I just noticed that. We're dog people.
Thank you. I'm a major dog person. He is part of PETA, and that's why he has those pointy ears. My brother calls them AM FM radio, and so he's got huge ears, and so they look like cat ears because they're pointy.
This is going to be a very competitive race. Obviously, we know that former Mayor de Blasio is, for all intents and purposes, your main opponent. But I would assume that this is going to be a very crowded field. Can you share with us what it sort of looks like right now? And when is primary day?
So the primary day is August 23rd. It was moved back. New York used to have bifurcated elections for primaries, but now this is the first time that it's going to be bifurcated since we changed that to make sure that all of our races are on the same day to save money. But now the court system has said that the new date will be August 23rd. We have already seen that over 15 people have filed for this seat. So it is a very, very crowded race. And so we're seeing that a lot of different folks from different perspectives are trying to run for this seat. I think that it is a very interesting dynamic. I'm looking forward to actually having these conversations with folks because it is a really important discussion to have for our district to have the ability to find somebody that matches their perspective the most.
Do you realize that the only cannabis lounge in Manhattan is in your district?
Really?
Did you know that? You probably don't know that. Yes. Yes, it is. It's called the Astor Club. And it's in this very nondescript. They have to vet you before they send you the address. And I was walking there and it's in Chinatown. And you're walking there and it's this very nondescript stairway that you go up. There's nothing there. You knock on the door and these two huge guys answer the door and you come in and they sort of check your ID, make sure that you're who you say you are. And not ID for age, mind you. Like they need to know that you're somebody that was approved. And then they let you into the room. And this is it's in your district. I'm just telling you, it's awesome.
But I've never been invited.
Well, you can join. It's a members only. If you look up Astor Club, no, it's a members only thing. But
I've heard of it. Obviously, I've seen, I know where it is. I didn't know, I've never done anything that's like, oh, let me exclude you. Like even when I was younger and
it's only that way because
I've never even I'm not.
But it's only that way because it's been around since before you even had legalized recreational. And so it was there even before it was supposed to be there. So they're just, it's like a speakeasy. And it's really cool. It's really cool.
So if you're trying to potentially get Jen to New York City to help canvass or anything like that,
her with
you know exactly how to drag her up to the
this is how I can tell you where it is. If you take maybe, I don't know how many paces, but probably 3.5 blocks from the Sam's fried ice cream. It's not far from there because I wandered out of the cannabis lounge and then I found a line, and I always get in a food line in New York, and it was for the fried ice cream, and that was really good. This was just a few weeks ago, by the way.
My line.
So I don't have a membership there. So what I'm going to offer you is going to be more my speed, which is I'm going to take you guys to Winnie's, where I used to bartend. It is also a Chinatown bar, but it's a little bit more of a dive bar, karaoke joint. And so we can go there and we can have our own good time.
Oh yeah,
I like that. I like that.
To
Oh, I would totally party down there.
Yeah. Well, my spot is actually it's outside your district, but my spot is the Hallel Gyro stand at 53rd and 6th. That's my number one spot. If you're going to get me to wait on a line in New York City, that is the only one.
Normally, I don't stand on lines anywhere. Like, I'll purposefully not do something even I need to do if there's a long line. Like, I'm just not going to. However, if it's in New York or other similar places where there's a lot of good food and it's a food line, then I'm going to get in and I'll find out what it is at the end.
But that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. When there's a food line, then I'll get in a food line. There's always something good.
A little Corona action.
Exactly. You never know. And this is what I do. That's how I eat whatever I want there. I eat small things and walk. And I just keep walking off. I eat, I walk.
So there's literally an article that Rezi did about my food tour of Chinatown. So we can totally take a food tour. I am down for that. I will take you on some of the best food tours of New York. I'm happy.
Very tempting.
Is there, if you know any good Asian vegan restaurants,
absolutely,
or ones that are just
in New York, they're like every other corner. You could probably find an Asian vegan.
The most famous one is Buddha Bodai, which is a vegetarian dim sum place right here in Chinatown. And then there's also Dim Sum Go-Go has a beautiful vegetarian dim sum option list. And we have a ton of beautiful Asian restaurants that are vegan or vegetarian. One would argue probably vegetarianism started in China. So
I still think it speaks absolute volumes about the fact that you have 700 campaign volunteers, and Lord knows
that's massive. Like, that's insanity.
Yeah, by the time you get to
that's insanity for a congressional race.
Yeah, and by the time you get to August, you'll probably have close to 1,000. Lord knows that it will probably grow exponentially at that point. You are an absolute joy to talk to. You are an extremely
and you are the young people, Yuh-Line. You really are.
Thank goodness.
You are the young people.
Yes. Also want to give a shout out. The reason why we had initially come across your campaign is because we are very, very enthusiastic about Representative Ron Kim. And I also happen to notice that you are endorsed by a friend of the show, Representative Ash Kalra out in California. You are doing an amazing job.
That's a good cross thing. That's a good coast to coast.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Well,
we had Ash on, and we were supposed to have Senator Rivera, but then we've had him before. We've had him before, but we tried to have them both at the same time. But then Senator Rivera got caught up.
Karaoke with him?
No, that would be really fun.
Okay, he's an amazing voice. He's also, I will just say that, if you want to come, we will karaoke and we will do a thing with Gustavo Rivera and me, and we will do the whole.
You got a New York trip coming up.
I might have to go. And I don't necessarily sing karaoke, but I'm more than happy to watch karaoke.
Don't stop believing.
Nobody.
I know I can't. My voice is too deep. I can't sing. Let me before
What's the
you go.
website?
Yeah, I'm gonna write it
out.
Oh
yeah, let me plug my website. It's New
please.
for New York. So as we were saying, it's New for New York. NIOUFORNEWYORK.com.
You know what? Whoever decided to go with that for branding was very smart.
Very smart.
Okay. Well, no, like, your name is not easy. Other than within a community of people that probably are familiar with it. It's not easy, and it would be easy for people to get website wrong, and it wouldn't be easy for a lot of gringos to figure this out.
We also have a specific hashtag, and that hashtag is literally #New York. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
Hashtag really good.
I just put it into our little chat.
That's awesome.
Yuh-Line, you have been absolutely exceptional. Yes, as Jen likes to say. Very confident, but obviously you do not rest on your laurels. Having an army on the ground is phenomenal.
Yeah, guys, get on there. Definitely follow on social media, and if you can phone bank. If you're there, canvas. It's actually not that hard.
No,
it's really not that hard. Although, quite honestly, that's a lot of people you've got. They don't even have that much square footage to cover.
No,
it's
but
really really fun, actually. I love talking to people because I love hearing their different perspectives. I think it's all about listening. It's all about understanding where our, what our district needs and where people are at, and having those different perspectives actually helps us to make better policy. Every single piece of legislation that I've done on the state level was actually inspired by a constituent or an issue that we were facing here in my district, and I will continue to obviously legislate in that way.
That's awesome.
And you are also looking to represent probably the most culturally diverse part of not just New York City, but possibly the entire country. There is nothing that you cannot do on 14th Street and South. It has got anything and everything you could possibly imagine. If you want to go to the Bowery, if you want to go to Chinatown.
This last time I was there, I was on 20th.
On 20, that's not south enough.
No, I know it isn't,
enough.
but I wanted to be able to easily just walk. We were walking to the garden, and I was there to see Billy Joel with my son. So it was a matter of.
You went to the Billy Joel thing. That's awesome.
I did. I know, it was awesome. It was on my birthday. It was like the best.
If only we had the Rangers in the Stanley Cup Finals right now.
Okay, we're not talking about your sports games.
That's a big thing for me. But
thank you so much for coming
Yuh-Line,
on.
thank you so much. Again,
thank you so
guys,
much for having me.
Absolutely, our pleasure, and we definitely will be pulling for you, and maybe we will hopefully see you before the primary. Go to newfornewyork.com. Guys, phone bank, text bank, contribute. Let's make sure we get a non-corporate representative, another non-corporate representative in New York City on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much, Yuh-Line. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Have a good night.
I love making friends that will facilitate me eating.
Well, I think that's what everybody wants, friends. And
I'm not singing karaoke.
Well, the good thing is that she probably knows a good place or two regarding food.
She just said she did a whole food tour. She wrote a whole food tour of Chinatown. I want to do that. I could do a food tour of Chinatown. So I went there. I went to Chinatown one time. I was in New York specifically just to go get this.
I could have Chinese food right now. That sounds good.
I'm actually in the mood. But like if I lived in New York, honestly, I would almost want to do this thing where I have to eat in a different restaurant every night and write a book about it. I'd probably gain like 1,000 pounds. But it would be, I don't know.
You wouldn't gain 1,000 pounds because you'd be walking around the city.
Well, that's true. And I only eat small amounts of food. I eat small things. Like I don't go big meals. But yeah, I would basically eat a different place every single night.
And from your perspective, it's like, well, if I can only take in so many calories in a day, I'll purposely only eat once or twice so I can have exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess more people want to have that philosophy. Yeah. So, yes. Agreed, Travers. Agreed.
Oh, and Rita, I don't know if you're still on there, but she was asked, she thought it was funny that I knew about this. I was there a few weeks ago. I was there on my birthday before Reese, or the day before my birthday. And the Astor Club was special.
So the big takeaway, there's obviously a lot of things we would take away from these conversations. First of all, Yuh-Line is an absolutely lovely girl, and we'd definitely be pulling for her.
She is.
I think she's got a really good shot, especially in a very crowded field. And the fact that she's got such an unbelievable volunteer army. De Blasio's going to have a lot of money.
Well, this is someone who has a record as a representative for that area. It's like, it's not just, and she has name recognition, but she also has she knows about policy. She understands legislation. Like she's not just coming out of, nowhere. So yes, he was the mayor, but you know what? I would like to say that most people are really tired of the same old people. And I say old, seriously, the same old people, the same old men.
Lady.
Over and over
again. Sorry, I said
girl.
Oh,
he sometimes does that. Can I tell you, sometimes he'll do that and he'll occasionally call waitress babe and stuff like that. Or hun. You call hun. He'll say hun. And here's the thing, and I know that you could be offended by that, but I swear to you, he really, it's coming much more from a chivalry place than any sort of misogyny. I assure you, we've traveled together. He's not misogynistic.
I don't need you to defend me.
I'm just saying. As a woman, I understand. I've called him on it a few times. I've said you shouldn't call them hun. You shouldn't do that. Sometimes he'll even touch like he does. But it's more just. It's kind of just old school chivalry.
As far as the conversation with Mr. Ventura is concerned,
I'm so glad you didn't do that. I would have died. Okay.
He is definitely serious,
but he needs ballot access. The fact that he and Yang have spoken is very promising to me.
I think
that's very promising.
So with that said, that's why Wednesday night's podcast now becomes even
more interesting
because none other than Andrew Yang's campaign manager, Zach Grauman, will be coming on our podcast to talk about his new book.
Which I'm I'm in the process of listening to. It's called Long Shot, and it's the book about him and Andrew, their campaign, which is very much like our ragtag, like this story listening to it is it's a national scale of our campaign.
Yeah.
Like ragtag didn't know what they were doing, didn't bring in consultants until for certain things. Like they really just used common sense and let Yang be Yang. That's the theme of it, which I always tell you, let me be me.
No, that's what gets.
But anyway, so yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with him. I've been listening to the book, and yeah, he's somebody I would want to run the campaign.
Also, I think we also have a candidate as well.
Not on here though. You might.
No.
Oh, okay, yeah, here it is. Sao and Sam Lawrence.
Yes. Oh, we're having two. Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate the support. Our first contribution
Guy.
of the show.
Thank you.
We will be speaking with two state house candidates that I believe are 18 years old and in high school, and this is in Ohio.
But are they running for different seats?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm like that. Okay.
And they reached out to us.
Oh, cool. We're
Yeah.
big with the high school politicos.
So this was an unbelievable experience.
I honestly don't know what I'm going to do now. Now what are we going to do?
Everything is downhill from here.
Well, no, I need to get Snoop or Willie. That's now my big thing. So anybody.
Well, Jesse and Tyrell said they would come back after the midterms, so let's make sure that we get that set
Love
up, 'cause
that.
that'll really get an indication of just how serious they really are. So, yeah, I think that
we should have a podcast with him and Yang.
That would really be something, but I think we could pull that off.
Maybe.
Again. You
never know.
But he has definitely. Jesse is making it very clear right now that it is the forward party. That is who he'll run with if the ballot access can be there. Andrew knows how to raise money, and people around him do.
They know how to get things done.
They do.
They just do.
So if he's got another year plus 2 years to get him the ballot access, and honestly, if he doesn't get ballot access in all 50 states, he'll run as he'll be on the ballot as an independent in other states. That's what will happen. But I think if he's able to get on the ballot in the majority of states that they need to get him on, then that's the ticket.
Well, yeah, some states, I think all the states are different. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
In doing this is you have to have real good teams, legal and otherwise, in every single state dealing with ballot access. It's a production of gargantuan proportions, which by design, so that it keeps people from doing it. But I would totally get behind that. I would totally I almost feel like texting Andrew and being like, I would totally get behind working on anything having to do with that campaign.
Well,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it would definitely be a game changer. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
We obviously know of some others that are considering running as well, but there is something about Jesse. He is different, and he's definitely got, like I said, he would be a bull in a china shop. No question about it. So we hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to tune in Wednesday, because now the conversation really gets interesting. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please share, like, subscribe.
Yeah, guys, if you're not patrons, you can help out. Be a patron. Patreon.com/generational change.
There it is. So if you would like to become a supporter of our program, you enjoyed the content that you saw here this evening, big shout out to Jordan Cheriton of Status Quo for recommending people come over to our stream.
I'm going to take your pen away from you.
It looked like at one point we had over 80 people watching live.
That's really cool for us.
Really
We're
good.
A small but mighty show. But as you can see, we get good guests. We have really good content. If you're new here, go back and look at some of our stuff. Because a lot of the stuff that we do, we do news stuff and political stuff, but a lot of our stuff is authors and experts and issue conversations that are not dated, so
absolutely.
Yeah, we have a lot of good content. This show was always set out to be a podcast in the first place. It just sort of turned into a live stream, like free for all.
So we hope you guys enjoyed. Great show, great conversations all around. So with that said,
Wednesday's my last show here.
Wednesday's Jen's last show. Where are you heading? Asheville
for 6 weeks. So it'll be the Gen Change in Asheville.
Looks like I'll have to hold down the fort.
You're going to have to just hold it down.
I'll do the best I can.
You should set up an office here.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Actually, I think,
I know.
That is what I'm going to do.
I know.
All right. See you Wednesday.
Bye, y'all.